Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, I am incredibly excited about today's topic because we're exploring a concept that could literally rewire how you look at your entire life. We're diving deep into the psychological frameworks of something called invincible thinking. Our goal here is to fundamentally shift how you process failure, how you handle setbacks, and honestly, even how you view the whole aging process. We're going to break down some highly practical, structural ways to make your mindset truly invincible. But first, I want to kick things off by challenging you with a simple yet totally profound question. What if there is absolutely no such thing as defeat in life? Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Yes, there is. I've failed exams, I've bombed interviews, I've had relationships fall apart. But what if every single one of those setbacks wasn't actually a defeat, but just unharvested value? What if the pain of those experiences is really just raw material, just sitting there waiting for you to use it? To figure that out, we're diving into our source material today, the book Invincible Thinking by Ryuho Okawa. Specifically, we're going to unpack the universal life lessons and psychological frameworks from the book's completely transformative second part. And look, we aren't talking about cheap, feel-good positivity here. We're breaking down a very tactical, highly structured approach to living. So, let's just jump right in and dismantle some of our deeply held beliefs. Section 1. The myth of defeat. Most of the time, we operate on standard binary thinking. We ask ourselves, did I succeed? Yes or no? Well, the text argues that limiting yourself to this strict yes or no mentality practically guarantees that you're going to suffer. I mean, nobody wins 100% of the time, right? But the alternative is invincible thinking. This is an all-weather approach. You expect success, sure, but when that inevitable failure happens, you immediately pivot to extract the lessons. In this model, you are always gaining something. The outcome almost doesn't matter. To put this into perspective, think about your life batting average. In baseball, a batter who hits the ball just 3 out of 10 times, a 30% average, is considered elite. The author points out that life is incredibly similar. If your life's batting average is 30 or 40%, you are actually doing fantastic. But that implies the other 60 or 70% of your experiences are not pure absolute defeats. They are your essential learning materials. If you demand a 100% success rate, you're just going to be miserable. But if you accept a 30% success rate and actively learn from the rest, you become completely unstoppable. So how exactly do we process that remaining 60%? Let's get into Section 2, Turning Toward the Light. This brings us right to the core of Part 2 from our source material, the theory of turning toward the light. This is a systematic, deliberate approach to reframing negative situations. It is essentially the engine that makes invincible thinking actually work. Let's define this really clearly. The theory of turning toward the light is the tactical extraction of value from negative situations to create positive opportunities. And I want to be super clear about this. This is not toxic positivity. It's not just pasting a fake smile on and pretending everything is fine when your world is falling apart. Not at all. It is the calculated practice of taking your existing materials, even the deeply painful ones, and using them as leverage for your future leaps forward. It's looking straight at a total disaster and asking, okay, how can I use this? The absolute heart of this idea is captured in this incredibly punchy metaphor from the text. Even if you fall, don't get up empty-handed. Just visualize that for a second. You've been knocked down, you're flat on the ground. Human instinct is to immediately jump back up, brush yourself off, and pretend it didn't happen. But this theory says, wait, no. While you're down there in the dirt, grab a handful of it, find a loose coin, pick up a cool rock, gather something useful. A tough new perspective, a hard truth about your own habits, a realization about who your real friends are before you stand back up. But gathering that knowledge is really just step 1. Now we have to use it. Section 3, Adversity as Fertilizer. The text brilliantly illustrates this concept using bamboo. Now, bamboo doesn't just shoot straight up smoothly into the sky. It forms those distinct nodes, those hard horizontal rings on the stalk. But here's the fascinating part. When do those nodes actually form? They form precisely during periods of restricted growth, like during winter or intense hardship. The adversity literally forces the bamboo to create a dense, hard nut, which is exactly what makes the entire plant so resilient to strong winds later on. Your periods of hardship, that's just you forming your nodes. And the text gives us a pretty stark warning about the alternative. Consider the broiler chicken. If you just sit around during easy times, being passively fed without facing any resistance, you're basically just gaining useless fat. You become spiritually and mentally weak.
But on the flip side, we have adversity training. Adversity acts as the necessary fertilizer that builds up your spiritual muscle. Actually, it's exactly like lifting weights. The resistance is what creates the strength. Once you reframe adversity as fertilizer, you genuinely stop dreading the hard times and start asking, wow, how much muscle can I build from this?
Okay, we're going to do a major pivot in the explainer right now. We're zooming all the way out from daily failures to the macro level of your entire lifespan. Section 4, the 120-year life plan. I want to ask you a serious question. How many years do you think you have left to live? Most of us plan our lives assuming we'll hit maybe 80, 85 if we're really lucky, but the text proposes a radical, total paradigm shift, a 120-year life plan. Let's just walk through the math here and look at what happens to your mindset at age 60. Under a traditional 80-year plan, a 60-year-old feels like they are winding down. They're entering the final quarter of the game. There's this heavy sense of running out of time, maybe even feeling defeated by goals they haven't achieved yet. But under a 120-year plan, at age 60, you are literally only at the halfway mark. You have just as much time ahead of you as you have behind you. It's time to start entirely fresh. The author notes that this simple mathematical shift completely erases the anxiety of getting olded. If you're 60 and you genuinely believe you have another 60 years ahead of you, the next decade is like being a newborn baby in your newly expanded timeline. You have decades left to read, to learn, to completely reinvent who you are. It just totally removes the panic of the ticking clock. So this timeline completely re-strategizes how you view your entire life. Age 60, that's just the halfway point. Age 90, that becomes the youth of your later years. Even at 100 plus, you're just entering the next phase of learning. By extending your horizon so dramatically, you eliminate the rush, the stress, and that awful feeling that it's too late for me. Guess what? It is never too late if you are operating on a 120-year plan. But how do we actually prepare for a horizon that massive? That brings us to our final core concept. Section 5, living a multi-track life. The text outlines some incredibly actionable preparations for what it calls a multi-track life, or a composite life. First off, you cannot rely on just a single life plan. You have to cultivate multiple interests and hobbies. You must commit to continuous, lifelong learning. And I absolutely love this last point. Keep an ear that obeys. What that means is maintaining a profound sense of humility, always being ready to listen to others and capture wisdom from new encounters, no matter how old or experienced you get. And there's a truly elegant comparison used here. Imagine you're in charge of putting on a fireworks show, but this show has to last for 100 years. You wouldn't just spring one type of firework, right? The audience and, honestly, you would get so bored. To keep the sky illuminated for a century, you need a massive variety. You need sparklers, you need rockets, you need those huge aerial shells. Your life is exactly the same. You need multiple tracks, multiple passions to keep your profoundly long life vibrant and brightly illuminated. So that brings us to our final thought for today. By applying invincible thinking and turning toward the light, we've eliminated the concept of absolute defeat by transforming every single setback into a stepping stone. We've eliminated the anxiety of a short lifespan by fully embracing a 120-year horizon, which leaves you with only one incredibly exciting question left to answer. What are you going to do with your next 60 years? Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer. Keep learning, keep growing, and definitely start planning those multiple tracks today.